Hello and welcome back to another episode of Road to National Master. This is game 27. This is round 4 of the event and we're playing Everton Togni. I've made some changes to the layout actually, so if you guys think that the layout is actually a bit better, let me know. I've been following all of your guys' suggestions as to how to make better video, better content, so if you guys have any other tips for me, let me know and I'll definitely listen to that and look into it, yeah. And if you guys enjoy my content, leave a like, drop a follow if you can. I really appreciate it. And join the Discord as well. I'll be dropping a link down below in the description and you can click that and access it. And really what I want to do is create a really cool community where everybody who wants to learn chess and become better at the game can interact and grow together as a community. Yeah, that's really my goal. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the game and we are playing the black side. We're playing against this 1885, who is underrated for sure in classical. This guy's rapid is close to 2000, so a very strong player. And he starts off with c4, so in English, and I reply with knight f6, which is what I usually tend to do. Knight f3, g6, trying to fianchetto my dark squared bishop and castle really quickly. He plays d4, controlling the center. And now he has very good center control, and I don't, so I'm gonna have to try and get some counter play from gaining space in the center further on in the game. So okay, knight c3 developing, I'm gonna castle, and he plays g3 here. Now g3 has the pure intention of fianchettoing his bishop, so we're playing kind of like a Catalan setup here with the white side, and what's going to happen is I play c5 immediately because I want to attack the center. Like I mentioned, now is the time to actually push my pawns forwards and try and contest the center. So bishop g2 by him, knight c6 by me, and castles. And by him playing this move, he has just transposed into my prep. I did not prep for this round. So for the other rounds, round 2 and 3, I did prep. Round 1 I couldn't prep because it's the first round. But round 2 and 3 I did. The 4th round I didn't prep, but I actually ended up falling into some of my preps, so that ends up working out perfectly. And if you guys remember this game, it was... Oh, I can't remember what number it was. But I'll leave a link to it in the video, probably. But yeah, you can check that out. It's the ungodly prep that I played. C takes d4, knight takes d4, and then this crazy move, knight g4. Like, what? Why are you playing your knight to g4? And the idea initially is that we're hitting this knight, so this knight now has 2 attackers on it, my knight and my bishop, so he has to address this. And the best way to address this is by playing e3. Because by playing e3, you kind of defend your knight and you attack my knight in response, just by moving a pawn. So this would be the technically the best move, and then my reply would have been to play d6. We'd get into this line where I sacrifice a pawn for counterplay along the b file, and yeah, this would be the position we'd reach, and I'd be very happy to play this position out. So this isn't what happened, by the way. What happens in the game after knight to g4 is he chooses to move the knight, so not attacking my knight with e3, which would be the better move. He plays knight b3, and this move I've never seen before. I'm very unfamiliar with these moves, but I know this guy is a Sicilian player, and that this knight b3 is sometimes an idea in the Sicilian, so I imagine that's where he got this idea from. Now, I had a really hard time trying to find out how to continue from here because I kept looking at my most natural move, which is d6, right? d6 is what I would play in the other line, and d6 is really what I want to play now to open up my bishop and this kind of idea. But if I play d6, I was looking at stuff like c4, c5 by him, and c5 was really bothering me because I really don't want to trade my d pawn for his c pawn and offer queen trade, that kind of stuff. But I mean, given the position, I saw that it has to be the best move still because the opening of the d file, in my mind, benefits me more than him. because the queens are staring at each other, and if he takes into me, of course, I'm going to take into him, and I have developed my rook onto the d file, which gives me full control, so that would be good. And if he doesn't take me, then I have some, let's say, so again, this, and then we'd play takes, and let's just say they play then knight recaptures. Well, then I have first move, and I can play something like queen to b6. So I've got my queen off the d file, which completely negates the possibility of trading, and then I can just swing around my rook and play rook d8. And that would develop my rook with tempo. So this is kind of what I envision for the position, and I think it's the best I could do. So d6 by me, and he doesn't play c5. Oops. He doesn't play c5, but c5 would have been the best move. So this would actually be the best continuation for both me and him, and then queen a5. So this is very thematic of these positions, to swing this queen around over to the h5 square, put pressure on this pawn, and force him to make some weaknesses. So this is very, very comfortable for me. I know exactly what I have to do in this position. But I don't know what to do after he plays e4. And e4 is really, really strange. It's kind of like, it's killing your whole game plan, basically, because really what you want in these positions is you want this bishop completely opened. You want to have this scope down. And the whole reason I played this obscure line with knight g4 is that I want to get into that line where I sacrifice a pawn, because by sacrificing a pawn I get some counterplay. Mainly because his bishop is so strong, I want to have some strong pieces as well. So that's the idea behind that. And now he just kills his piece. This is one of his worst pieces now, because it's completely blocked off by this pawn, which doesn't make sense on e4. Sure, it gains more center control, but it also kind of takes away some center control from the white side, because now d4 doesn't have any defense by pawns. So basically only pieces can defend d4, which makes it kind of weak and sensitive. So yeah, I was really happy to see this e4 move. And I just continue with knight g5, which is the top engine move, and immediately putting pressure on this pawn. So again, if he plays c5, I'm quite happy to see c5 now, and c5 is something I calculated, and I calculated that after c5, d takes, knight takes. Now, instead of playing queen b6, I'm going to play purely b6. And the reason is, if he trades queens, for example, then he's still going to have to move his knight back, let's say, and then I can actually develop my light square bishop to a6. And a6 is very, very strong now, because I have 1, 2, 3 pieces defending d3. And if I can get my knight into d3, which I most certainly will be able to do, that's a very powerful piece, and that would be exactly what would happen in this line. The best move here, the engine says, is rook d1, rook takes, knight takes, rook d8, attacking his knight on d1, knight c3, then knight d3. Aha, and now I've got it, because I'm threatening to win the dark square bishop, which would be very good for me, and also threatening this pawn. And it's not really clear how you defend both, so I would be lost in this position here as white. I just would not know what to do. So glad that's not me on the other end. And yeah, he plays queen e2, simply defending the pawn, which is the most human move possible. It's an imprecision, but it's the most human move. The engine wants something absurd. The engine wants knight d5, sacrificing a pawn, and then playing queen e2 to hit my knight, and once I go back, develop the bishop. So you sacrifice a pawn to develop 2 pieces, which does make sense, sort of. It doesn't really make sense, because what are these pieces really doing? It's not really contributing to an attack, really. Okay, you've developed your pieces, but I can always defend my position really well, if need be, so I don't really see what the point of this was. Maybe you guys do, maybe you guys can let me know. So anyways, after queen e2, I need to come up with a plan again, because now my c4 plan doesn't work. He's defended c4 successfully, so really what do I do? And I came up with an imprecision, I saw the best engine move. I just thought I could play my move first because it comes with tempo. And the move I was mentioning is bishop g4, which is an imprecision because I was trying to get him to play f3, which he does. And my idea behind f3 was he's gonna blunt this bishop even further. And that's actually not the case because he's always gonna have f4 ideas and then play e5 in the future. So this really wasn't necessary. It really doesn't blunt this bishop any further, and it just forces me to move back and gives him kind of like the initiative in this position. So now white can play a move and defend against any of my threats. f3 didn't really make a difference for him in this position. So the best move would have been to play a5, which I saw, and then let's say a natural move for white. What I would play in this position is bishop b3, and the engine agrees, bishop b3. And I saw this really stupid plan. It's stupid. It's really silly. The plan is just to push the pawn all the way down the board. So a4, attacking the knight. The knight has to move. It goes to d2, and then a3. And this is kind of like the plan that I was seeing as well. And it's just like, you know, if you don't do anything, I'm going to take into you, attack your rook, and then take this pawn in the future, which will be very weak. This doesn't happen, and it can't happen because that would be way too strong for the for the black side. So white needs to respond with b3. And now bishop g4 would come in and be very powerful, because now after you play this move, well, first of all, let's point this out. When they played b3, there's some very nice tactical possibilities here with this bishop looking at this rook, which is undefended. So this is a very cool plan, which has formed, and we can make use of this because if they play f3 in this case, it's completely different, the story, because now we can play knight takes with check, and after bishop takes, knight takes, then bishop takes on c3. We're hitting this rook. This pawn is very weak and backwards, and we can target it with knight b4 and this kind of stuff. It's just a dream position for me, and I'm really happy at this point. I didn't get this on the board, of course, but we will see this in the future. So like rook ad1, and really, what do you do? There's not much here you can do as white, except try and defend the pawns. So bishop g4, f3, and now this idea doesn't work, of course, because well, this is completely closed off and protected, so there's not any ideas like that anymore. So bishop b6, and he plays knight d5 to try and take away this scope of my bishop, which is fine, and this is what I want to play anyways, this a5 move, so I feel like I can play it now. And I'm starting to notice that this is very similar to some positions in the Maroczy bind, in the Sicilian Maroczy bind, and this is a typical idea in some positions where you play a5, a4, and then you bring your queen to a5. So I had these kinds of ideas in my mind at the time. He goes just bishop b3, avoiding my threats, and again I push my pawn. And I'm gonna play this very stupid idea of just push, because it's just really, it's hilarious, man. It's hilarious that this works. It befuddles me. Okay, so a4, he has to move his knight, and the best move is to play knight d2. And there's a really clear reason to play knight d2. And of course I'm going to play this, and he has to weaken this, otherwise it's way too much play for the black side. Now, in this position though, I don't have bishop g4, so this is not a move. So I need to come up with a plan. So I'll ask you this time to pause the video and try and find the best sequence to follow up with as the black side. And the crushing idea here for the black side is actually to play bishop takes d5. Bishop takes d5 because now he doesn't have a knight that controls b4, and we can insert knight b4 ourselves. So we've now created some possibilities amongst this file, this diagonal, and also we're targeting this pawn if the rook moves. So the rook really can't move, and there's really not a good way that white can actually kick this knight out. You can't really attack it properly. It would take a few moves. This and this looks way too slow, and in the meantime I have major tactics going on with like knight takes f3 at some point, or maybe knight takes c4 if need be. But yeah, I wouldn't play it now because it's not worth losing 2 pieces for a rook, even though the rook is important and defending. The other rook would come over and assume that important role. So, okay, knight b4, and this would be very good. Unfortunately for him, he plays a blunder now. Instead of playing knight d2, he plays knight c1. And the reason this is such a big difference is because in the other lines we just saw, we would have to lose 2 pieces for the rook. Where in this case, now that this is disconnected, we can actually play knight f3 or knight takes c4 and just win the exchange. So knight c1, a3, and he can't go b3 anymore, and that's the point. Because in the other line, he would be able to play b3. In this case, if he plays b3, both these ideas work. So that doesn't work for white anymore, which makes him play this really awkward move, rook b1, and I continue by taking. And again, if he takes, then we're going to reach this position where I win his dark square bishop, and this would be very, very good for me. But hey, it's the best engine move. It comes a point where you just need to accept that the position is a lot worse for you and play what the position demands. He plays knight b3, kind of going for a different direction this game, and giving up the a2 pawn, which is very, very dubious in my mind. Very dubious indeed. Engine gives knight b3 a mistake. And the reason for this is because a2 is way too valuable, and now I have ideas of playing rook a1 at some point, and by playing rook a1, if we ever open up this bishop as well, we can trade down and win major material. Okay, so he needs to do something, because he sacrificed a pawn. He sacrificed 2 pawns now, actually. Well, he lost a pawn, and he sacrificed the other. Now he has to play actively, so f4, I think this is a good move by him. And it's really scary, this move, because after knight d7, it kind of looks like my bishop is getting trapped here by him playing f5, so I'd be forced to take his knight, which I really don't want to do at this point in the game, so yeah, this was very uncomfortable, although I felt it was the best move because by playing knight d7, I stop him from playing bishop to b6 or knight b6 in that matter. So now he can't play any of these moves, and I think this was definitely the best, and if he plays this, I'll just take, and that's okay for me. I'm playing for the a file anyways, so took away that possibility. He doesn't play f5, he plays queen d2. Okay, but queen d2 is kind of not really in the active spirit of what the pawn sacrifice demands. So it's kind of like you've given black the initiative again, and black can actually choose to play what they want. So again, pause the video, find the best sequence here for black. And congratulations if you found the move. The move is, again, bishop takes d5. And now white has to take back. The queen is definitely the inferior capture. You can either take with c or e. I think e takes is a lot better because you make this pawn a backwards pawn. That's very weak and targetable, so you can at some point add a lot of pressure on this pawn by playing stuff like this, and then maybe doubling up at some point if allowed, or maybe with the queen and attacking like this. And this also dislodges the knight, which is the defender, so now we take away this defender on c6, and white will have some counterplay on the e-file, at least. But I wanted this to happen, because now when I move my knight, I move it to the perfect square, which is a5. And this is the whole idea of playing bishop takes d5. The idea is you want to trade this knight on d5, first and foremost, and then you want to play for this idea of knight to a5. If you hadn't played this move first and just went here, then there may be stuff like bishop to b6 coming in at some point, which can get quite crazy here. So yeah, this is definitely the way to go, bishop takes. And you're dislodging the knight, which controls this square, and by trading this off or forcing it to move, it's well, you can't actually choose to just move the knight because you'd hang this pawn. So you can't hang c4 as well. That's also a feature of the position. You have to either take me or defend the knight and pawn. He chooses the inferior option, which is to defend the pawn and the knight, because my idea was to trade this knight off anyways. So I do that, and I play queen a5. And queen a5 had a very specific line in mind. I'm intentionally hanging this pawn. So again, black to calculate, black to play, and find a winning sequence here. So, if you found the winning continuation, congratulations. I found it in the game, and I was very, very happy to find it. The idea that I was playing for was after queen takes b7, we don't defend the knight. We could defend the knight and play something in that sort of fashion, where we play knight c5, let's say, bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and then we play bishop to d4 check. Just a rising star in the center of the board, controlling every single dark square in the game and threatening to promote on a1. This is definitely a winning idea that you could play for. I saw a better continuation, however, and that was... Let me just clear these arrows. I hate this chess-based interface because you need to take away the arrows one by one. That's very annoying. Or if you guys know a better way, let me know, please, because I struggle like hell with this. So after queen takes b7, the winning idea that I played was queen c3. So if you take my knight, I take your bishop, basically. And when I take your bishop, I defend this. That's the first step. The second step is you actually can't take my knight because I have major threats of promoting. So he has to play bishop f2 here, which I saw. And now the incredible, simply rook a1, hanging my knight completely. And the idea is you cannot take this knight because if you take, then there's rook takes, and then queen c1 check. Queen c1 check, and you sacrifice the queen. You can't take this because you just lose the rook. If you take, I take back and make another queen, and you really can't defend this anyway because I would just take here. Yeah. And at this position, my opponent resigns, and I go on to win my 4th round. So now I am 3.5 out of 4, which is insane. I have never scored so well in a tournament in my life. So you can... it's insane, bro. I am ecstatic at this point. I'm on the moon with this result, and I can feel it. I can feel the title in my grasp, and it's all coming together. All of my training is paying off, and it's just a great feeling. And I really wish everybody watching this video can experience this feeling that I'm feeling at least once in their life. It's amazing. It really is something. So I'm really, really happy with this result. We're gonna play next round on the next day. So this game was played with the 3rd round. It was the same day. And then tomorrow is a new day. So stay tuned for that video. Hope to see you guys there. See you later. Bye.